Amanda,
Hey, I thought I'd be home
how are
by now,
you?
but still driving.
Oh, you are all good. All good.
I'm doing good.
You
We'll
know,
be home in 10 minutes.
yeah, I got a gripe with you.
Oh man, you need more brownies? Are you mad because you
I,
put on like
I,
five
I, I,
pounds?
I don't need any more brownies. I think I put on about 10 pounds.
Did I not warn you? You should have shared. You should have took one and then gave the rest away.
I know, I know.
That's the
Oh,
trick.
Lord. It was well worth it. Well worth it. Marley,
Well,
what's up?
hopefully
I
the
see
gym has been
Marley.
treating you right.
It has. It has. I think I bounced back pretty good. Holidays are worth it. You got to get it in when you can.
Very
Hello,
true.
sorry.
What's up, Marley?
I made it.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good, 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 good. See, we have Dima. Dima. Not sure who that is. I know we have a Chris
Nadima.
and Marcus. Who?
Nadima.
Nadima. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Yeah, I
Good.
saw your registration come in. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Got a industry person in here.
Yeah, I saw it come through and I was like, you know what? That sounds interesting. Let's put it in.
Yeah, thank you. I know
Yeah.
a couple more people are gonna log on here. People have been texting me, some folks are just habitually late. So, but I want to be respectful of everybody's time that's on here because we only have an hour together. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yes, we can. I can.
Okay. We only got an hour together, and I want to make sure that it flows properly, that I get to answer your questions. So I'm just going to go ahead and dive in, and folks can log on as they see fit. I think I had about close to about 20 people register, but typically about half will show up. So we'll see how it goes. Um, all right. Let me see here. Just FYI, my daughter is usually the moderator and the technology person, but she's not on tonight. So you guys got to bear with me and I got to figure all this out on my own. What y'all do? Let's see. Share screen. Okay. All right. What shows on your screen? Do you guys see my presentation here?
Yes.
Okay. And do
Yep.
you see my face?
Yes.
Unfortunately. She's like, yes. Unfortunately, we still see you, Chad. Thanks, Marley. That was very nice of you. All right. Cool. I appreciate you guys logging on tonight. Like I said, the replay will be available. So if at any point you guys need to log off, you need to take care of anything, feel free. So let me really set the context with this presentation. And Nadima would understand this from an industry standpoint. So my previous presentations, we probably have had about literally on the presentations, probably about 20 to 30 people. We talked about home buying and investing. So very aspirational topics. I think home selling is very situational. Um, Amanda, Marley, right? You guys are in the process of thinking about selling. So it's not as kumbaya, right? It's not as aspirational, and I think you're not going to get as big of a turnout. And at the same token, I think the subject matter, one thing I want to preface is very business-like. I'm going to try to make it as fun and engaging as possible. But what I tell people up front is that you guys have all been through a real estate process before and you've purchased homes, and the buy side of a transaction is always emotional, right? It's fun, there's a lot of elation. There's happiness, there's joy, there's accomplishment. And then when you get to the selling side of it, it's very different. It's a very different psychology. Now, Amanda, I know we've been through this process before, and we've been through this process before with your father, right? And it's just a totally different feel. So I think you're gonna get a sense of that. What's up, Chris? How you doing?
I'm showing
You're
you
gonna
this because
okay. You're gonna get a sense of that straightforwardness in this presentation because I think sellers, they're a different beast. And as you're getting ready to go through a home sale, you just have to give yourself the grace to say, this feels a lot different than home buying, right? It's not as joyful, it's not as fun. Now, if you make $50,000 over on the sale, it's going to be fun, right? And it's going to feel good. But it's just very straightforward business. Let me check the chat. I see people talking here. Let me see. Oh, it's all good, Chris. You're good, bro. Let's see. All right, we got now my daughter's on so she can help moderate this. What's up, boo? It's about time you joined us. All right, let's dive into this. So, home selling 101, from listing to legacy. And I don't know why this, there we go. I'm going to frame this conversation because it's important to think about the home sale as being different than home buying. So selling is about transition, right? It is a very strategic decision. There's a lot of emotion to it. There's a lot of financial consequences. Some of you guys are getting ready to sell so that you can purchase a new home, right? Like it's very nerve wracking. And what I see happen is that a lot of sellers, when they go to sell, they just start thinking about price. How much can I sell my home for? And that's all they really care about. And within that, they're not thinking about the process. So today we're going to cover the process that you need to be thinking about because it's not just about the profit, but it's also about the stress involved and putting yourself in a position to win. Okay. My name is Chad Nash. So for those who, everybody knows me, but if you don't know me, my name is Chad Nash. I am a senior real estate advisor at Coldwell Banker Global Luxury. Amanda, we've been working together for years. Chris, I know we followed each other for years. Before being at Coldwell Banker, I had my own brokerage for about 4 years. I have a Ph.D. in research and evaluation methods, and I don't say that to gloat. It's actually a benefit to my sellers because we get very analytical. I'm very data driven when it comes to my job. So that's some of what I'm going to share with you guys tonight. How do you guys make data driven decisions? I've been able to help well over 250 clients across the greater Denver metro area. And I've always ranked within the top 1% of realtors within Colorado. So I take all of this very seriously. And half of my production, literally 50-50, half of it is listings, half of it is on the buy side. Now that's important too, because it allows me to have a perspective from both buyers and sellers. Sometimes you get very listing heavy agents that can only speak listing language. And sometimes you get buyer agents that only know how to speak buyer agent language. I think what has helped make me successful is that I know both worlds. Okay. Now on the sales side, I always tell my clients this up front. The realtor does not sell your home. Okay. And I know that's going to sound very backwards. A realtor does not sell your home. It is not it is my job to sell your home. I don't want to say it's not my job to sell your home. The home is going to sell itself regardless, right? And I know that's going to sound like, well, why the hell am I going to pay you all this money? It's my job to help you diagnose the risk, to maximize the leverage, and to protect your equity. So the best thing that a realtor can do for you in the listing process is to give you as much information and help us to make decisions within it. I can't go out there and force a buyer to purchase your home. A buyer is going to buy it if they fall in love, but I can help put your home in position to maximize exposure. And once we maximize that exposure, I can put you in position to make the best decisions to maximize your profit, if that makes sense. Okay, before I jump into this, let me tell you how this is going to flow. You're going to see this presentation and it's going to be very wordy. Okay, so I don't read directly from the slides. The reason why the slides are very wordy is because you're going to get this as a basically a handout out at the end, and you can go back and reference this. So I look at the subjects and I really want to infuse a lot of my opinions across each one of the slides. Now, you can ask questions, raise your hand, hit the chat, uh, take yourself off mute if there's something that resonates with you. I'll have a question and answer section at the end if anything is poignant to you and we need to discuss. But don't try to follow along with everything on the slide because it's a lot. Okay. Let me pause before we get into it. Any questions? All right. So let's look at where we are with the Denver real estate market. Now, if I took everybody off mute right now and said, do you understand what's going on in the real estate market? You guys would probably say that you've heard mixed messages every day. There's always a different message going on with the real estate market. Is it a buyer's market? Is it a seller's market? Are interest rates going up? Are interest rates going down? Let me be the first to say that we're in a very unique time in kind of in our generation when it comes to the real estate market. So prior to the last couple of years, we saw a very heavy what we call a seller's market. Okay, I would say coming out of COVID, 2020, 2021, 2022. This is when you were hearing all the stories about homes going $50,000, $100,000 over asking price, people not doing inspections, not a lot of inventory, things of that sort. Now, over the past couple of years, that market has really shifted to what before it was psychologically shifting towards what we call a buyer's market. Now, statistically, it has shifted to a buyer's market because we have more inventory than we've had in probably the past 20 years across Denver. What does that mean for you as sellers, right? So the market is much, 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 much more competitive. So if you're looking at the market from 2020, 2021, 2022, you have friends that sold and they're like, man, we made a killing on the selling side. It may be a different story for you right now. Okay. Now, last year, I think was really tough. I do believe that going into 2026 is going to be better. Nadima, you're a lender, correct?
I'm actually a realtor.
Are you a realtor? Okay. Okay. So she may be able to teach this class better than me. Um,
No,
what we're seeing, right? Last year it was very turbulent when it came to interest rates, and that was really impacting a lot of the buyer sentiment and the buyer availability of who wanted to actually purchase homes. So a lot of homes sat on the market. You can see inventory was up 28%. The days on the market, when we were in our heyday a few years ago, days on the market, you were lucky if a home would make it through the weekend, right? You put a home on the market on a Thursday, it was coming off on a, let me let this person here. Hey, Shawnette, we will put a home on the market on a Thursday. It was gone by Sunday. We had 10, 15 offers. It was a wrap, right? Now we're seeing homes on the market upwards of 40 days. And that's just a norm. But a lot of sellers aren't used to that because they're used to the old market where things were just flying. So you just have to keep that into consideration. Price reductions are big. Price reductions are super big in the Denver market right now. As we talk about pricing your home later on in this presentation, I'm going to give you some strategies on how to think about pricing your home. But we're seeing price reductions up to 22%. Before, we were seeing homes going over asking 5, 10, maybe 15%. Now we're seeing sellers who are still pricing high because they're thinking about the market from 2020, 2021, and they're having to reduce the price. And that causes a lot of dynamics. And we those who have been on my other presentations on the buy side, we talked about buyer concessions how it's benefiting the buyers. Well, sellers are giving up seller concessions at an alarmingly high rate, at historical highs. And we'll talk about what those are. Overpricing is the number one mistake. We'll talk about that a little bit. And it is more than important that folks are actually tapping into their realtor and their realtor resources to prep their home, stage their home, market the home. Before, you just had to put a sign in the yard, and that was it. You could call it a day. Okay. So why do first-time sellers feel stressed? And this is, again, like I know Amanda, I know a couple of you guys have sold properties before, but it's a good refresher. But for those who have not sold a property before, and this is your first time going into it, it's just like when you were buying a home. You didn't know where to start. You didn't know who you needed to talk to, what resources you needed. So these are some of the questions that I see from most first-time sellers, and we're going to try to cover as many of these tonight. And if we don't get to them, then obviously you can reach out to me and we could talk some more through some of these topics right here. So a lot of first-time sellers don't know where to start the process, right? They know they want to sell, they have a goal in mind on the other end, but they just don't know how to start the process. So that's a big thing. What should I fix? That's another big question, right? What do I need to improve? What enhancements do I need to make? Chad, how do I price it right? How do I buy and sell at the same time? Now, this is going to be a subject that I cover in another presentation later, so we're not going to talk about too much of the buy side, but right, there's some folks on here who are looking at buying after selling, and that's a whole nother level of stress. Chad, what happens if my home doesn't sell? How do I not leave money on the table? Are these questions that you guys can relate to? Is there any other questions that you guys are thinking about as you're going into the sale process, or just as general consumers?
Nope. Those are my questions.
Okay, perfect. All right. So now that we know what the questions are, here's the 5 biggest mistakes that I see a lot of the first-time sellers make. Overpricing, right? Now, we all want to ball out. We all want to get rich from the sale of our homes. And that's the point of it, right? We get into ownership to create wealth. We want to make as much money as possible from our investment. That's logical. But I see a lot of sellers who just reach and reach and reach, and they just want to overprice. And we're going to talk about how do we avoid that. Poor preparation and poor presentation. I'm going to make an argument that 90% of the home sale, maybe 80%, right? 80 to 90% of the home sale actually occurs up front, right? The value that you're going to get on the back end of your home, 80 to 90% of that is going to be made in the preparation that you do up front, okay? Rushing into the market unprepared. What I see sometimes, sellers, they have a certain goal on the back end, and all of a sudden they need to sell their home to make that goal happen. They haven't thought it out. They haven't given themselves enough runway or ramp time to prepare the home and to get the home in the best position. And now they have something on the back end. Maybe they need to purchase a home or whatnot. Maybe they need to move for a job or whatnot, and they haven't given themselves enough time, and now they have to do it quickly. That's a lot of stress. Weak negotiation strategy. Now, this obviously comes from the realtor, but I would say it's from the seller as well, right? I see a lot of situations, not my sellers, because my sellers are always prepared, hint, hint. But what I see is that a lot of folks go into selling situations and they don't have a strategy. They don't have a negotiation strategy already in mind on how they're going to confront certain offers that come in. That's very important. And then they underestimate, and I would add a couple more things here. They underestimate inspection challenges, things like appraisal, and the true cost of selling the home. And this is all things that we're going to cover throughout this presentation. Okay, so let's get into it. When a seller comes to me, again, their biggest motive is the highest price. I very rarely get a seller that says, you know what, I want the least amount of stress. I want timing. Their biggest thing is profit, profit, profit. Okay. What I'm going to tell you is it's not about the price of the home. It's not about what any realtor can tell you that they can sell your home for. What matters in a selling process is how much are you actually going to take home in your pocket. So yes, the net proceeds. What is the timing and flexibility? And how much stress are you going to incur throughout the process? So if you're going into a selling situation, what I would say is don't just think about, oh, I'm going to work with the realtor that says that they can get me the highest price. There's so much more, whether it's opportunity cost, stress cost, timing cost, flexibility cost, that you need to be thinking about in totality outside of the price. Now, I'm not saying the price isn't the biggest thing. Obviously, that's driving it. But you need to understand what the true objective is, and you need to be able to discern what is my true goal, right? And how do I align the decisions that I make in pricing, preparation, things of that sort to accomplish my individual goal. Not just, oh, he said he can sell my home for $1 million. Let's roll with that person. Okay, so let's look at that. Strategic pricing versus emotional pricing. I want to focus a lot of time here because this is where I see the biggest mistake. When you are a homeowner, you take pride in your investment. You take pride in the home that you have. Every seller, no matter what, even the sellers I've talked to on this call here, I ain't gonna call, I'm not gonna bust anybody out, but everybody thinks they have the greatest home, right? But that's every seller because you live in it. You know how it is loved to you. You know how you've loved the home. And you get attached to the valuation of the property. Strategic pricing is much more important than thinking about the emotion tied to the property. I know what you want. Everybody wants as much as they can get. But what you have to understand is a home is not going to sell for what you think it should sell for. A home is not going to sell for how much you think your home is worth. Your home is going to sell for what a buyer is willing to pay for it or what the market is going to give you. And in that, we have to be able to think about strategic pricing within the market, not the emotional pricing that you are tied to. So let's look at some of these. Overpricing reduces early buyer urgency. What I can tell you is that the first 72 hours of any listing, I can predict, and probably Nadima can too. I can predict how a listing is going to go within the first 72 hours of action, because that is when the most buyers are going to be looking at your property. It just popped on the Zillow. It just popped on the Redfin. Hey, honey, we got a new listing. Let's go check it out. People are clicking on it, so on and so forth. If that home is not resonating quickly with the masses, it's only going to continue to kind of flatten out or go down until you do something like a price drop or you come off the market or something of that sort. Now, I put on here the first 14 days matter, right? That's when you're going to get the most data because that's typically when the most buyers are going to be coming through your house. So if you're not pricing correctly up front, I get so many sellers who say, well, you know what, Chad, can we price high and see where it goes, right? Because they hold on to this thought of, let's give ourselves a cushion because folks will offer, if we price high, they'll offer what they want to, and they'll still come through. right? They'll still come through to see the house. It doesn't work like that, okay? And I can tell sellers this as until my face turns purple. It actually works in an inverse way. Sellers are going to look and they're going to take a signal from the initial pricing of the home if this is a value to them and something that's worth it for them to go check out. Okay. So I typically try to coach my sellers to say, hey, let's look at the comps, let's look at your competition, and let's price under the competition. Because if we can price under the competition and we can get maybe 10 to 20% more buyers through the door because they think it's such a value, now we can create urgency. Now we can create competition, which will get you to that goal of getting a higher price. But a lot of times I see sellers who say, that's just a little too risky. I want to price high, give ourselves room to come down if somebody makes a low ball offer. And this is what I'm going to tell you, that 10 or 20% more that you were hoping that came through the door, it's actually going to probably be 30 to 40% less, because they're going to look at your property, especially in a competitive market like today, and say, why are we going to go look at that house that's, and I'm just going to say, priced at $500,000, but every other price, every other home is priced maybe $450,000. What makes their home so special that it's at $500,000? You know what? We're just going to wait till they do a price drop. And what that does is you lose that leverage because you got less people coming in. You're already signaling to the market that you're overpriced. And buyers, if you have a strategic agent, I'm telling my buyers up front, look, they're going to have to do a price drop within 20 to 30 days. So let's just hold out and see if it's on the market. And once you do that price drop, guess what you lose? Leverage. Soon as you start dropping the price, you lose all the leverage in the world, okay? And you don't want that to happen. So price it right up front, be strategic, and understand that if you could get as many people through the door in that first the first weekend to the first 14 days, that's going to be in your benefit. Okay, let me pause there. Any questions on that? Okay. Pre-listing preparation. Now, remember I said, this is where I think that 80 to 90% of your home is going to get the best ROI, return on investment, when you actually go to the market. Now, for me, this is why you have to give yourself that runway of time to prep your home. Gone are the days of saying, oh, I'm going to put my home on the market next week. I'm just going to clean it, put it on the market, and let 100 buyers come through. The launch, and I heard this the other day, there's a difference between listing your property and launching a property. You want to make sure that you have a good game plan with your realtor, hopefully it's me, that you are thinking about, how are we launching this property? Now, this comes down to the pre-listing preparation. Minor repairs can yield outsized returns, okay? What does this mean? To me, the best things that a seller can do if they're thinking about selling their home that are easy fixes are painting, carpet, and declutter. To me, though, that will change the whole dynamic of a house. Okay. So if you're thinking about selling, at the very least, you need to be saying, okay, if these are the three things that I can handle or control, let me get those out of the way. Then there's other minor fixes that you could get done as well, right? Caulking or broken windows or anything of that sort that buyers will be looking at, and they try to deduct the home value because they see those issues. If you have a good game plan up front, listing out all the things that you can take care of, that's going to put you in a whole different stratosphere. Now, let me give you two pathways with that. There are repairs and there are improvements that add value to a home. Before you start doing those improvements, I would highly suggest you consult somebody like me or another realtor to say, hey, is this improvement actually going to add value to my home sale? Those type of improvements to me could be like new flooring. Yes, it could be new appliances. It could be a bathroom remodel, a kitchen remodel, okay? Those kind of things, a basement finish, that's always going to add value to a home, landscaping, things of that sort. Now, the second pathway in it is what I call defense value adds, okay? So we got offensive value adds. These are things that are going to add value to the home. You can consult with your realtor to find out what that list is, and I'm happy to send out my list to you as being part of this group tonight. But then you got defensive value adds as well that protect the value of the home, okay? Now I get a lot of sellers who will say, Tad, let me try to think of Nadeem, as I'm thinking through, what are some defensive value adds that protect the value? Light switches, right? Cracked light switches or cracked windows, right? Or appliance like black appliances and white appliances mixed together, or
Yeah, pretty much like
countertops.
any eyesore, I would say.
Right.
Anything that catches their attention when they walk in, that's going to be like, oh my God, that's broken. Oh, this is chipped. Oh, like simple things make a big difference. And I definitely believe that the decluttering, if the clients are, if owner occupied homes, like the decluttering definitely is a big thing.
Right, right. So what Nadima is saying is anything you walk in and you see as an eyesore, just because we fix it, it doesn't mean it's going to add value to the home, but it's also going to protect the perception and the integrity of the home if we get it, if we fix it or we repair it, right? So some sellers will come to me and they say, we poured new concrete, right? And we added new blinds and what are some other things? Just little things like that. And I hate to break it to them. And I say, well, that's good. That's going to protect your value. And we need to do it, but it's not going to add value to the home. These are just regular things that buyers are expecting to see within your home. So make sure you understand offensive versus defensive improvements. Okay. Any questions on that? I saw somebody in the chat, but I don't know how to get back to the chat. Tasia, can you get to the chat? Do you see the chat? Oh, I got it now. Let me see. Oh, somebody's just saying that they have to log off here. All good. Okay, let's see. Now, I'm just going to do a shameless plug. Now, the sellers who are working with me that are on this call, that I champion this all day and night. So we have a program through Coldwell Banker. It's called the Real Vitalize program. And take advantage of these type of programs, no matter the realtor you're working with, if they have them. If you work with a Compass agent, they have something, I think it's called a Compass Concierge or something of that sort. Remax has the Remax Refresh program. These brokerages, if you don't have the money or the capacity to, say, paint your whole house or do carpet or flooring install or new appliances or whatnot, brokerages will front the money to you to get this stuff done because they know it will help you on the back end to sell the home for a higher price. So we have a revitalized program to where we will front you X amount of money. It's typically up to like $50,000 to do improvements to your home at no extra cost to you, no interest. And then that is just paid back to us at closing. Amanda, I think you used that when I was with Compass. It was a similar, I think we did that with your dad.
Yeah, with my dad. Yeah, we did, because he had that
Right.
real old house.
Right. And take advantage of that. So if you're working with me and I say, hey, here's a laundry list of things we need to do, don't be scared. We can think, do we want to do it? But if we're going to do it, don't be scared because we have the capacity to get it done. Okay. And that is in your best interest. And you should look for a realtor or a brokerage that has that capacity to help you. Okay. That's just my 2 cents on it. I'm going to skip this one. I didn't think it. Yeah, we're going to skip that one. All right. Now we got the home prepped. Let's talk about the marketing piece, right? Gone are the days of, again, just putting a sign into the yard and hoping that it sells. Marketing is a real thing. Eyeballs on your property goes a long way, whether it's eyeballs on Zillow, whether it's eyeballs on social media, whether it's eyeballs on a realtor's personal site. When people can see competition and they can see excitement from others, it just creates a sense of urgency. So we're doing the marketing. You want to do such a good job marketing that tons of eyeballs are coming to look at your property. You don't want a realtor that's just saying, oh, we'll take pictures, oh, we'll take a video, we'll put it in the MLS. There really needs to be a strategy around professional photos, drone footage, videos, and a strategy on where those placements are going to be, because that's what's driving the competition, or excuse me, that's what's driving the excitement, and that's what's going to create the competition to get you higher home values. Okay. So professional visuals are table stakes. You also need to make sure, not you, but the realtor, that they have a good plan and a good network to expose your home to as many people as possible. I see so many realtors out there who just put their home or put the property on the MLS and they just hope that it sells. That's not the type of realtor that you want. You should challenge your realtor on what is your marketing strategy and what are the channels that you're using. Now, I'm gonna make a value statement here. Some people on here may disagree. Nadima, you may, I don't know your strategy on it. You will see a lot of these influencer realtors out there now, right? And they make all these videos and they're funny and they're comical, right? I personally don't think that sells homes. It does draw eyeballs from a lot of different groups. But I do think you need to have a realtor that knows how to create exposure, right? It doesn't have to be gimmicky, but they need to have a plan of action on where your home is going to be seen and how they're going to position it and tell the story of it. Let me pause there. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? Okay.
Chad, what has been the most, I guess, where have you gotten the most exposure from?
Yeah, that's really good question. For me, it's typically YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, but I guess it's because I do so many videos anyway,
Mm-hmm.
right? A lot from YouTube, a lot from Facebook, and I get a lot from LinkedIn, surprisingly.
Yeah.
I don't have a big
those are good platforms. Do you ever target market? Do you find do you ever market a certain targeted area or clientele based on the home that you're selling or listing?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a great question. So that's a deeper question. So we do geo targeting, right? And we do a lot of we've reverse prospect a lot of neighborhoods. We have a system, we use Vulcan 7. I don't know if you ever heard of that, to where it pulls the addresses within a neighborhood. But when we're doing that kind of marketing, sometimes that's more so for us, right? To say, hey, we have a listing that's similar to yours. Now, what I think Nadima is talking about is there's certain flows to certain neighborhoods, right? So let me give you an example, because I know Amanda and Marley, you guys are out east. So like Green Valley Ranch, right? Green Valley Ranch is historically known as being a first-time home buyer neighborhood. But then you have step up neighborhoods out here like the Enclave, like Aurora Highlands, like where you're at, Amanda, out there. You're in Harmony or Vista. You're at one of those. Which one are you in? Amanda's gone. Anyway, those are step up neighborhoods. So you can do some reverse kind of targeting to find specific buyer niches that would likely be migrating to these step up neighborhoods.
Harmony.
Harmony. Okay. So that kind of marketing is very advantageous because you're targeted to say, I know that this buyer profile is typically going to be moving from like a Green Valley to a Harmony or Aurora Highlands. Now, I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that I do that on a regular. I will do that with certain properties that have a specific flow, right? Maybe it's a higher price point and there's a lot of lower price points in that vicinity. I used to do that a lot with apartments, right? So for renters that I knew were going to be looking to come into like first-time home buyer areas, Montbello, Green Valley, Aurora, things of that sort. And that worked really well. Does that make sense? Nadima?
Yes, it does.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, from the marketing, and let me actually just kind of go back to kind of put a nail in that. Marketing is important. You need to make sure that you have a realtor that can document exactly what they're going to do for your home, and they can back it up once they do it and you see the effectiveness of it. Okay. For those who are working with me, I talk a lot about the seller reports that we do on a weekly basis that shows all of the marketing that we've done so that we can be accountable to you when it comes to marketing your home and the efforts that we're making. And I'm happy to share that seller report. Nadima, I'll share my seller report with you. So you probably do something similar, but I'm happy to share that with you guys so you can kind of see what that looks like.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, once you're on the market, how can you keep the leverage in your home? And this is one of the things that I don't think a lot of people think about as being a way to keep their leverage. So I will get some sellers who shoot themselves in the foot when they go on the market, right? So we've done all this prep. We've gotten the home ready, staged, clean, marketing is on point. And then I go ask them, I say, okay, Mr. or Miss Seller, when can buyers come see the house? Oh, well, we don't get home until a certain time in the evening. So maybe they can come between 5 and 6:30. And on the weekends, we're doing engagements here at the house. And so maybe we could do a couple hours on the weekend. What I'm going to tell you is this. If you are thinking about selling your home, you need to be in that mindset to say, I need to make this home as accessible as possible throughout the process. Yes, it's going to hurt. Yes, it's going to intrude. But the more flexibility that you give yourself in allowing access to your home, the more leverage you're going to have, the more exposure you're going to create. So and now there are some times where it's just like, look, Chad, we just can't allow ongoing access, right? Like, yeah, you can put some restrictions. But if you're one of those where you're like 70% of the week, I can't show the home, you probably don't need to be selling at that point in time. Just my opinion. Okay. I think that a home should be readily available at least 75% of reasonable hours. Now, reasonable hours to me is between like 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. Okay. That's on during the week and on the weekends if you're selling a house. Because what happens is if you become so restrictive in allowing access to your home, buyers are just going to pass it by. Your home is not that special that they're going to say, oh, I can't see this on Wednesday at 3:00. And they want me to wait till Saturday at 2 to come see the property. And I hate to burst your bubble. Your home is not that special. Now, in the luxury markets and the higher price points, yeah, you might be able to get away with that because homes move a little bit differently and slower. But in the regular folks' price ranges, like my price ranges, if a buyer wants to see your home, we have to urgently allow them to see it as quickly as possible. That doesn't mean you got to drop everything and say, hey, they can come right this minute. But if you can say, hey, we need a 1 hour notice, or at least on that same day, try to make that accommodation, you're going to be in the best position to keep that leverage. Once a buyer says, like, as soon as you decline a showing, the likelihood that that buyer is going to come back is very, very low. Okay, now I don't know the exact percentages, but it's low. Does that make sense? Or is there any questions I can answer on that? What I would also say is if we have work from home situations. We have situations where we might have a parent that's in the home because you're caring for them. That's okay. That's okay. I will tell you, if you're in a work from home situation, I know it's sometimes uncomfortable, or yeah, you might be doing private things as well, that you can't have folks in the home. That's fine. Find an area in the home and just kind of settle down, or you're like, hey, I'll just step out for a minute. But if you got kids at the house, it's not ideal. If you got parents at the house, it's not ideal. But buyers will forgive that as well, right? So what I typically try to tell my sellers is like, look, a buyer would actually want to come see the house, even if they know that you might have to step into a corner, as long as you're not being weird about it and following them around the house. Just make it flexible. And we can tell them up front, like, hey, grandma's here. She's immobile. She's going to be, in the nook over there. Let's just work around. And that way you're not declining showings and things of that sort. So just make it as accessible as possible, from my opinion. Offers. Here's what we need to think about. Price is just one variable. So after we go through the showings, you get an offer. You need to think about it like you should think about it like this. Price is just one variable in what I call the risk equation. When I get an offer, I am determining the entire risk of that transaction. Okay. Price is just one of the variables. I've seen tons of realtors, I'm sure Nadima has as well, where you get a super high price offer and the seller sees that number and they're like, oh, yes, we got this number. But now when you go through the entire contract, you're like, man, this is the riskiest, strangest contract I've ever seen. That poses a risk to you as a seller. And so what we need to think about are a couple of things that can actually kill deals. Financing strength matters. I'm a big, big proponent of programs and loan parameters that help people get into ownership, right? I love when folks can access different programs or loan programs that can get into ownership. On the flip side, when I'm a listing agent, I need to make my seller aware that there are some type of programs or loan parameters that can actually be detrimental, maybe not detrimental, but harder to get through once we go under contract. And you need to be aware of those. So, and I'm not making any value judgments here, right? I'm just going to keep it real. Cash is king, right? Cash is typically the easiest, but I would say that you got a lot of buyers that become bougie with cash and they actually make more demands, right? Then you got conventional. That's number 2, right? Which is when you talk about escrow going through under contract, the least amount of scrutiny in general. Then you have the government-backed loans, right? Like the FHA, VA, things of that sort. Then you got like the down payment assistance, CHAFA. And then you have different other programs like NACA and these weird, like the more unconventional down payment assistance that are a lot more risky. So when I'm presenting offers to my sellers, I'm looking at financing strength in loan type. I'm also looking at down payment. I'm looking at earnest money, things of that sort. Those things matter. Contingencies. These are the hidden costs within an offer, okay? And I'm happy to talk more about these in a private session. You could have the most beautiful offer out there, right, from a price standpoint. But if that offer is littered with contingency dates, right? They have an inspection date, they got a due diligence date, then they got the homeowner association dates, right? These are typical dates that are in there, but the more dates that you have on there, you have contingencies for the loan acceptance and the loan parameters. And then you might have somebody who has a contingency for a home that they need to sell to buy your home. The more contingencies and the more dates that you see in an offer, the more risky that offer becomes. And that's just the fact of the matter. Now, again, some of those contingencies are going to be standard because I never tell my buyers to not do an inspection. Most lenders are going to require an appraisal, so you can't get around that. But when you start seeing more and more contingency dates in an offer, that's just more opportunity for a buyer to back out. Okay. Inspection strategy. You got to have a strategy and an understanding how to factor in inspections. This is a big cost that I think a lot of sellers don't take into account. So they see the price of the home, they know what their net proceeds are going to be, and they think that's it, game over. Once a home is under contract, the next round of negotiations begins with the inspections. Now, as a seller, my recommendation for most properties, especially older properties, is to do what they call a pre-inspection. This is about $300. This is just like an inspector coming out and doing an inspection once you're under contract, but at least you know what's going on with your home. We can see the aesthetics and the cosmetics, right? Because we see that on a daily, but we don't see like the sewer. We don't see the roof. We don't see the sprinkler system, right? We don't see what's going on inside the walls. That's what an inspector comes for. And the one thing you don't want to happen is you get under contract, you got a great offer, and then bam, inspections come. And now you got to spend $10,000, $15,000 on inspection issues because you didn't account for it. And then you're mad at me because that profit goes down, right? So let's prepare ourselves up front to do pre-inspections, especially on older homes. And then we also have to account for that within your net proceeds and also your listing price if we know that there's going to be potential inspection issues, or provide what we call like concessions or credits to overcome that. We just don't want you to have surprises once you get under contract. Inspections are, to me, the outside of a buyer being pre-approved and getting through underwriting, inspections are the number one deal killer, right? So we just have to have a strategy around that.
Chad, I have a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
On these pre-inspections, that's a brilliant idea. I've actually never done one before on my listings, but it makes a lot of sense. When do you do those pre-inspections when at your initial meeting with your sellers? Do you let them know, like, I'm going to do this pre-inspection on the home prior to listing your home, or do you do it after the listing? And do you take care of the cost, or do the sellers take care of the cost?
Yeah, no, great question. Great question. So what I would say is that's a judgment call, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I know it's like an older home, right? I'm just going to use Marbella. Like those homes are built in the 70s and the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
I'm already going in and I'm going to recommend like, hey, we need to do a pre-inspection. Park Hill homes, notorious. If I have a Park Hill home, I'm always doing a pre-inspection because of sewer issues out there. If I'm doing a Green Valley home, like I have a couple of folks on here, like, Amanda's in Harmony, like those homes are a lot newer. So it's not as prevalent to me to say, let's do a pre-inspection. Mm-hmm. But for me personally, I do cover the pre-inspection, especially now, I'm not going to get too much into my commission structures, but the folks who have worked with me, I let my folks choose the commission structure. Mm-hmm. And if they choose like my full service, then that's typically when I'll say, hey, yeah, I'll cover the pre-inspection, because it's a value add. I think it's a realtor to your clients. Yeah, it's a cost that they don't want to incur. I think it helps you. I think it helps you grow the trust when you're trying to get the listing as well, to say, hey, I'm going to cover this and we're going to protect you up front. And now this is what I will say, Nadima. There's actually some realtors who will fight against doing pre-inspections, and I'm sure you know why. Because it becomes a material issue, right? Like if
Right. And
something
then you
is,
gotta disclose.
you got to disclose something, right?
Mhm.
So that's the other side of it. Like, do you want to disclose certain issues to the general public if you find out? There's always this battle of, if you do a pre-inspection, do you need to put that in the MLS? Do you need to disclose that? I'll be honest with you. I would much rather disclose the pre-inspection up front because I trust my inspector and say, hey, we priced it accordingly. We see the inspection issues. Here you go. You know it up front as a particular buyer, as a potential buyer. And that way there's nothing, catching them by surprise. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. Yep.
Appraisal. We just got a couple more slides. I know we're at that. We're getting close to that 1 hour mark here. Just a couple more slides here anyway. Appraisals are tricky. Appraisals are tricky. And I was explaining this in a video to somebody earlier. There's market value of a home and there's appraisal value of the home. When it comes to pricing, as realtors, we got to take into account both the market value of the home, and that's we got to look at the comps, we got to look at the competition, we got to look at what are homes selling for over here. Like, can we predict if we list with competition that's above us that we might get more action, so on and so forth. But then we also got to take into account appraisal, right? So there's two separate prices that we actually have to negotiate, two separate valuations that we have to negotiate, because as much as, let me say this to you. Let me ask Amanda this as a seasoned seller. I'm putting you on the spot if you're on it.
I am.
So let's say comps are going for $450,000 in your area, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you get an offer for $500,000. How are you going to feel about that? You're going to tell me to
Good.
take that $500,000, right?
Yeah.
Anybody would. That's natural,
I'm
right?
still just trying to break even. So yeah.
You're going to say, let's take the $500,000. But here's the thing. And Nadima, you probably seen this, especially when we had competitive bidding wars. Agents, if they're smart, okay, let me put it like this. I can write an offer and I can say, okay, if it's going to be a bidding war, let me go ahead and write an offer on this house at 500,000. Okay. But I know the likelihood, because the comps in that area are only 450, 475, that the appraiser is not going to appraise the home at 500,000. So guess what? When the appraisal comes back and they say, oh, you know what? I know you got an offer for 500,000, but I'm only going to value this at 475. Who's SOL on that? And I'm not talking. There's another play to this, so I don't want to get too far. Nadiva, don't spoil it here.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't spoil it here. But if it's 500,000 and the appraiser comes back and says, well, we're only going to appraise at 475,000, person who is out of luck is the seller. Because now they got two ways to go. They can either say, well, screw you guys, like the appraisal didn't come in, we're going to come off the market. Well, that's a waste of time because you've now wasted probably about 2-3 weeks, right? Or you can lower your price down to what it appraised. So that's how a lot of realtors were winning offers when it was competitive. It was like, well, we're just going to put a crazy amount out there, and we're going to hope and pray that the appraisal comes back low. Now, there's a way to protect this. And I know Nadima, she was over there itching, saying, I know how to protect against this. It's appraisal coverage, appraisal gap coverage, right? So this is, again, one of those things where when we're looking at an offer, if we start seeing homes that come in and, we're competitive and they're offering $20,000, $30,000 over, and I'm telling you up front, like, hey, the comps don't support what they're offering, that's where we want to have things like a appraisal gap coverage, because now you're putting the hook back on the buyer to say, look, if this doesn't appraise, you're still going to pay the price that you offered, and you're going to cover that out of your pocket. I'm not going to have to lower that price, right? Just a big thing that you want to think about, appraisals and working with your realtors to understand what their marketing value is of the home, and also what the expected appraisal amount is going to be. Let me pause there. Any questions on that? I think this is the last slide. Yep. And the last one here, okay, and we talked about this with the net proceeds, the cost of selling a home. Okay, so I remember one time, it was early in my career, and I was showing a potential seller just a net sheet. I said, okay, this is how much we're going to list it for. This is how much you owe, and this is how much the potential net proceeds are. Then when I started breaking it down, I said, but you know what? Now you got closing costs, right? And then you got to also factor in maybe a HOA transfer fee or taxes or anything else, other escrows and commissions. They didn't want to hear that. They just thought like, oh, well, you tell me this price. This is how much I owe, and this is how much I expect to take back once it closes. So you need to make sure you're working with the realtor that is very explanatory on the net sheets, okay, that are very descriptive and give you a very accurate estimation on what that potential net proceeds look like. Taxes. You want to, when you're going into a selling situation, we want to confirm and estimate about how much taxes are owed or going to be need to be paid on your property. We can run things through title to see if taxes have already been paid, but that's a big chunk that I see come out of net proceeds all of the time. People don't know where their taxes are at, and rest assured, the county is always going to collect their taxes. HOA fees, right? Is there an assessment? Is there a transfer fee? So like Marley, you're in Green Valley Ranch, right? The private HOA transfer fee is humongous. We got to take that into account. I think in Green Valley Ranch, it's like 1/2 of 1% of the total sales price, right? That's a big chunk. And in your case, that could be like $3,000. Do you have any extra liens that need to be paid off? Do you have any judgment, any back taxes that are owed? Do you have any mechanics liens? Anything that's owed that is added on to the home, you want to take into account, because that is going to be coming out of your net proceeds. So we don't want to just look at the home price and how much you owe. We also want to say, do we have a big picture on everything else that's owed and all of the closing costs, HOA fees, taxes, things of that sort? Okay. So what I'm saying here, I guess the takeaway with that is make sure you're working with somebody that's very descriptive on the extra cost of selling the house, not just how much it sells for and how much you owe. And then the last one here is the exit strategy. What are we doing after the sale, and when are we doing it? Right. So I always ask sellers like, hey, what is the plan? Right? Or if you're looking to buy another home, do we have time after the sale to stay in the property? Do you need to move quickly? Do you have an Airbnb you're going to go to? What is the plan of action? We got to make sure we set up that exit strategy, because that's going to impact your costs as well. If we got to get an Airbnb for a month, we need to factor that into your net proceeds, because Airbnbs aren't free. Now, just a side plug for me, and I apologize, but if you're a client of mine, I have multiple Airbnbs, and I do host my clients that work with me as a value add to say, hey, at a very discounted rate, you can stay in my Airbnb if you need to, if there's a gap in time. Marley, I don't think I told you that, but I'm telling you that now. So now you know. So you just need to kind of think about those kind of things. Okay, what is that exit strategy and how is that going to impact my cost if I need to put more some of my proceeds into temporary housing, or can I coincide it to where I can sell the home and I can skip a double move and save some of that money. That's it. I know I went a little bit longer, probably about 5 minutes longer than I needed to, and I apologize. I want to open it up for questions, but before I do, selling again is a business. It's a business move, right? Buying is euphoric, it's fun, aspirational. You've achieved something. Selling is all business. So I always say, if you're thinking about selling a home, talk to a realtor, talk to me. Let's set up some time and let's go through a lot of this stuff up front. Let's have an in-depth consultation so that you're ready. Don't just rush into a sale process and drag a realtor into it without a plan of action. As you can see, even just in this presentation, there's a lot of steps and there's a lot of thinking that needs to go into it. And that's what we're happy to help you with. That's why a realtor gets paid what they do. So I offer what I call my vision seller strategy sessions. If you guys want to set up time with me, even just 30 minutes to ask some more questions about these processes, there's no obligation to work with me. Obviously, you got Nadima on here. She's much better. She's probably much cooler than I am. But you can ask me questions and then you can say, hey, I'm going to go find another realtor and ask them questions as well. I just think it's super, super important. Thank you, guys. Now I want to go to some of the questions. I'm seeing some questions pop up here in the chat. Just let's start blurting out questions. If you guys got to get off, like I said, this will be emailed out to you. I appreciate you coming. I will stay on as long as you want me to answer a few questions.
Thank you, Chad. I'm gonna head out. That was great info. Thank you. I always like sitting in and seeing how every other, a perspective different than mine. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Appreciate you coming.
Of
Yes,
course.
Marley, I did
Good
forget
night.
to. You heard it now, but I kept telling you to come on to the webinar, huh? See, that was why I had a gift for you. I had a surprise for you. That was a surprise. What other questions? I know I didn't explain it that good that people don't have questions. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate that, man.
No doubt. It was all good. That was some good information you had.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
I'll tap in. I'll hit you on the email.
Okay. Yep. Shawnette, I know we didn't get a chance to really talk, but thank you for joining. If you got any questions, let me know.
Thank you. This was super helpful.
Absolutely, absolutely. Amanda, you know you always know how to get a hold of me. You just got to bring brownies and we can talk.
Yes.
I appreciate
Yes. No,
you.
this is good. This was helpful. Thank you.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys for logging on. The replay will be sent out and I'll talk to you guys soon.
Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you.